Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into the world of the Moonshiners Motorcycle Club.
Yeah,
I've always been fascinated by early motorcycle history, that whole counterculture vibe.
me too. It's a really interesting slice of Americana.
So we've been looking at the Wikipedia page for the Moonshiners MC. Gives a pretty good overview.
Right, it's a decent starting point. And your curiosity about how these clubs kind of shaped the whole outlaw biker image, that's exactly what we should dig into.
Yeah, let's do it. Our mission, if you will, is to figure out where the Moonshiners came from, what they were about, and how they fit into that whole outlaw narrative.
Sounds good. So where do we start? The beginning, I suppose.
Okay, so the source says 1934, Compton, California. That's where the Moonshiners Motorcycle Club apparently got its start.
Compton 34. Got it. And they weren't just like cruising around initially.
No, apparently not. The focus was riding and racing. Primarily racing, it seems.
Interesting. Racing was a big deal for those early clubs.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild they actually still have a website. Moonshiners13mec.webs.com.
No kidding. A direct link to their origins in a way. That initial racing focus, though. Why do you think that was? Just the thrill of the machine.
Could be. Testing the bikes. Testing themselves, maybe. Pushing limits. It feels different from just, street riding. Builds a different kind of bond, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that. Skill, competition, camaraderie. Okay, so they started with racing. What happens next?
Well, seems like by the late 30s, things shifted a bit. They started doing more street riding alongside the racing, became more of a motorcycle club in the broader sense.
Right, expanding their focus.
And they were good at the racing part. In 1939, they got this SCOF Diamond 13 award, recognized as a top racing club.
Ah, SCOF, that's a key name, the Southern California Outlaw Federation.
Exactly. And the source points out SCOF wasn't aligned with the main group, the American Motorcyclist Association, the AMA.
Right, they were specifically set up in opposition to the AMA and its rules. Which begs the question, why? What was the beef there?
Good question. Maybe the AMA rules felt too restrictive. Or maybe SCOF just had a different philosophy about riding, about clubs.
Could be any number of things. But this is where that word outlaw comes in, right? And it's crucial to understand what it meant then.
Yeah, totally. The source is clear. Back in the 30s, 40s, outlaw just meant you weren't an AMA member. Simple as that.
Didn't necessarily mean you were robbing banks on your motorcycle?
No, not at all. It was an affiliation thing. You were either AMA or you were outside the law of the AMA, an outlaw.
Which is so different from the image that comes later. It was about independence, choosing not to be part of the main governing body.
Exactly. So they're established, they're racing, they're riding, they're aligned with SCOS, meaning they're technically outlaws.
Right, setting the stage.
And then comes 1947, Hollister.
Ah, the Hollister riot, the big one. Highly publicized, as the source says.
Yep. And the Moonshiners were there. Apparently, quite a few California clubs are involved.
The list is pretty well known. Pissed off bastards of Bloomington.
Booze fighters.
Market Street Commandos, 13 Rebels.
Sharks MC, they have a website too, apparently.
Top Hatters.
Salinas Ramblers, Yellow Jackets, Galloping Goose. A real who's who of early California clubs.
It must have been quite a scene.
No doubt. And Hollister, well, whether the reality matched the hype or not, its impact was massive, culturally speaking.
You mean like the movie?
The wild one. Exactly. Brando, the leather jacket. That movie really cemented the image of the rebellious biker in the public mind, and it drew heavily on Hollister.
So the Moonshiners' participation in this event, that becomes really significant.
Extremely. Because they were already a non-AMA club, an outlaw club in that original sense.
Right.
And then Hollister happens with all the media attention on the disorder, the perceived rowdiness.
And that's where the 1% label comes from, isn't it?
That's the story. AMA officials, trying to distance the majority of riders from the events at Hollister, supposedly said something like 99% of motorcyclists are law-abiding citizens. And the trouble is caused by the other 1%. Implying clubs like the Moonshiners, the ones at Hollister, were that 1%.
Precisely. And that label stuck. The source really emphasizes that the image of the 1% outlaw rebel biker we know today stems directly from the behavior, or at least the reported behavior at Hollister in 47, and then another incident, the Riverside riot in 48.
So that label, 1%, it shifted, didn't it? From just describing non-AMA affiliation implicitly through Hollister to meaning something much more rebellious, anti-establishment, potentially criminal.
It became a badge. Maybe not intended that way by the AMA, but it got picked up. The term itself helped forge that identity. It's fascinating how a word can evolve like that.
It really is, and the Moonshiners are right there at the center of that transformation.
Their legacy is tied directly to it. Which makes it interesting that, according to the source, the Moonshiners MC still wear that SCOF Diamond 13 patch.
Yeah, that really connects them back to those early days, before Hollister's even, back to that original Outlaw identity, the non-AMA independent racing club identity.
It's a powerful symbol. Wearing that patch today says something very specific about their history and their alignment right back to the beginning, a link to their roots.
Definitely. So if we recap, they start in 34, focus on racing, align with SCOF against the AMA, making them outlaws.
Then they participate in the pivotal Hollister riot,
Which leads AMA officials to coin the 1% term, linking non-AMA status with rebellious behavior.
and boom, the modern outlaw biker image starts to solidify, with the Moonshiners playing a key part in that story.
It's quite a trajectory, from racers to symbols of rebellion.
It really is. And, for folks wanting to dig even deeper, the Wikipedia page does list some sources, books by authors like Chris Simonek, John Bassett McCleary.
Bill Hayes and Jim Quattlebaum, too, plus the club website we mentioned, so avenues for further research are there.
Always good to have those pointers.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on the Moonshiners MC, it's clear they're more than just an old club. They were right there when the perception of motorcycle clubs dramatically shifted.
They were part of defining what outlaw meant in the motorcycle world, intentionally or not, from simple non-affiliation to a whole cultural identity.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It leaves me wondering, how much power does a label like Outlaw or 1% actually have? It starts as one thing, maybe just descriptive.
And then it takes on a life of its own.
Right. It gets shaped by events, by media, by how the groups themselves react to it. And you have to consider the lasting echo of something like Hollister One event, maybe even exaggerated at the time, still defining perceptions decades later.
It's a strong reminder of how narratives get built and how sticky they can be.
Definitely something to chew on. How much are we defined by the labels others give us versus the ones we choose ourselves? And how much does history, especially one sensational moment, lock in that definition?